this item has been attended to, which is calling the meeting to order. There is a proposed agenda. Is someone prepared to move the agenda? It's moved by Cletion, seconded by Trevor. Okay, any change? Okay, Connie?
I just need to add the gaming revenue sharing agreement. It's a motion that would just, it's just a straightforward procedure.
Where would that be? 9MN?
Sure.
Or is there a financial? Oh, that's the next meeting.
Yeah.
That's at the next meeting. That's why I was putting it there, but.
Okay. That's in addition to the agenda. Any addition? Trevor?
Question to, I noticed on the agenda items, Charlie's beside some of them.
Charlie's going to be here this afternoon, correct?
Yes, he'll be here this afternoon at 1 o'clock, so he's asked to have his items moved to
After one?
after that.
Okay.
We'll be done by one.
I was gonna say so.
Yeah, so Robert's dream was we're gonna be done by one.
Yeah.
Sorry, Charlie, next time. Just kidding.
Robert,
John,
I
sorry.
was wondering if we could just have an update from you regarding your experiences with the bus crash.
Okay.
Just as an update.
Why don't we do that first?
Yeah, do it right at the beginning.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
After 2?
And then I'd like to add something to citizen concerns.
Yep.
Jack's got a sore throat if you want.
Where do you want, where does that go?
4A.
4A?
Yeah, just call it People's Assembly location.
Could we add that to the People's Assembly?
So, you
Oh, yeah,
want,
there is
in
one.
general? Yeah.
yeah, oh, I thought I seen something down here.
Yeah, there is. I'm sorry, I forgot.
Yeah,
8D.
8D.
Yeah. So, it says cultural events proposals.
That's Charlie's.
No, Eddie.
That's Edward.
Ed, sorry, Ed. There's four items that he wants to propose.
Okay.
So People's Assembly is going on the People's Assembly motions.
So are you
8D?
okay with that being there then, John? Where the
Yeah.
item you raised, can it be discussed in 8D?
D?
Yeah.
For D, I have cultural events proposals.
Oh, do you have the amended?
I might have the old one.
Yeah.
Uh,
On 8D, on this one's got People's Assembly motion.
Yeah.
So cultural's 9, People's Assembly 8.
Okay, yeah, 8D is fine. I just don't
Okay.
have the updated one.
I guess,
Connie?
just one more thing, Robert. I don't know if we need to put it on the agenda or if you just want to tell us, the council, on our own, about the email we received. Is it not last week, the week before? Oh, no, Monday. I think it was Monday. And you included, or Megan was included in it.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Refresh my memory a little bit. An email regarding,
Sheila sent an email on Monday.
oh yeah,
Oh, yeah,
okay,
okay,
yes,
yeah,
yeah.
So you want to just give us an update, because you sent it to, or you included Megan?
Maybe we can try to get Megan a call and ask her to phone in as when we get to that agenda item.
Okay, so we'll put it on
So where would we put it? Connie?
number 4, citizen complaint, number 4.
Okay.
We have all the
Number
citizen complaints down in number 11 as in camera. Is that
Yeah,
Is it
so
better?
number 4, done.
Okay,
C,
so D, 11D.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, now my memory's
Yeah.
clicking. I know what it is. Okay, any more discussion on the motion? Other than that, we have a consensus on adopting motion with the changes, correct?
Addition. Yeah.
Okay, hearing no more discussion, motion carried. Okay, we've agreed that we'd give an update on the bus issue. I think I'd rather explain first what happened. I was really happy that both Heather and Kathy were in contact with me as early as Saturday morning, and we actually were busy the whole weekend because it just flew. There was lots of inquiries, Heather had to take a lot of calls. So what we decided internally with some communication with Elizabeth was that we would walk a very fine line here about how we approach this. And we thought that our best approach was first to be, offering condolences, wishing people that were injured that they would get well sooner, and then that we would refrain from any kind of harsh comments or attacks about the road issue. As you can see publicly, I was very restrained, and I tell you, it was very hard, even with a call from somebody on executive council, that I should be pumping it a little harder. But so we have been responding to, or I have been responding to a lot of inquiries. I forget what the number, but the number is quite high. I think just on my own, there's been eight, and I think half of them have been TV. And even as late as yesterday, I was leaving the office yesterday, and somebody called me so that they can do an 8:30 show last night. So anyway, but the fine line that we wanted to take is that I didn't want to be taking this as a political opportunity to be attacking the province about them dragging their feet and all that kind of stuff, which actually I wanted to do. Like, I think if Kathy was beside me, she'd be restraining me. But that's how it was. So anyway, we took and towed a fine line as we can there, because, and the reason I done that, it's important that the council know that Elizabeth and I were actually in discussion prior to the accident. And a couple times she's released some positive news about the road. Not a yes, but certainly getting us closer to that. But the last bit of discussion we had was that Carol James is now involved. And Carol James is saying that from her perspective, she doesn't see why this shouldn't be funded. So when you get the finance minister saying that, I think we're getting a little closer to to home plate here. But again, it's going to take some miracle work. But having said that, I have said publicly there are outstanding issues. We've overcome the technical issues, but the big obstacle now is the road ownership issue. And then the news media has chosen to play up the safety issue, and that's it. That's their call. I don't have any objection to them, playing that up and making it an issue. And I look at it as just helpful to us. But it's going to take all of us to be busy. And when we go to the Union of BC municipalities, every opportunity you get, whether it's a cabinet minister meeting, just say, oh yeah, by the way, this is a huge concern to us. So anyway, from my perspective, that's where we're at. I wanted to and made sure that I said our condolences go to the family that lost their members of their, or lost loved ones, and that we wish a speedy recovery for those that were injured. And Heather, you prepared with Kathy, prepared the first draft of the press release. So anyway, you had people working through the weekend. I'm telling you that by Monday morning, I had such a tight lump on my back. I almost decided to take Monday off to recuperate from that very. It was a mental strain on myself, but I had to think, just think what's happening to the families that have lost loved ones, the families that have, family members injured. So anyway, that's the road issue. That's how I walked it, and I would do it the same way again, because basically, we're making such significant strides with the province right now than we have in the past. the past, we've had meetings with ministers, but this is the first time that we actually saying, okay, on the technical issues related to the road, we agree that chip sealing is feasible. Now we got to deal with the road ownership issue, and I'm confident we can get by that. The only one that I'm worried about is Mosaic. Mosaic being the new company, former Island Timberlands. So that's where that is at. I'm hopeful for some result that may be favorable, and like a lot of people, it's unfortunate that it's this incident that is going to open their eyes to what should be done. And that's just the public media and the public relations connected to this. The media chose to jump all over this for a different reason, and I'm okay with that. People are concerned about the safety of the road, the condition of that road, and the best communication I got, there was a letter or an email from a lady in the Lower Mainland, and she was willing to mobilize people to get letters and emails to MLAs about how important this issue is, and I supported that, and I think I said to Kathy to see if you could connect on if there's something we could do there, and to Heather. So anyway, that's it in a nutshell. Trying to explain what happened over the last 4 days in 5 minutes is very challenging. But I do want you to know that it is. I think of Cletion and all our people. We want people that visit our territory to come here, be safe, enjoy what we have. To know that, almost every article is universal about how treacherous the road is, that safety is the ultimate issue. So I think it falls in that, when people visit us, we want them to be here in the best care possible. And I just feel it's our duty to press the government, in order for people to, to visit our territory, they need to come on what we consider to be a safe road. And the last thing I want to say is that I got there shortly after the accident happened, and it was very obvious to me that the bus hit a soft shoulder. There was no doubt about it. And when you look at where the bus finally, like the soft shoulder was probably about like that. So the bus driver had pulled over as far as they could, but you could see where it all is. It wasn't skid marks. It was a collapse of the shoulder, and I'm sure that's what the police will end up saying, or whoever investigates it. It was a collapse of the shoulder, and it's the first time that I've seen Western react so quickly. They had the fill of the shoulder of that. They had the what did they call that? The big rock.
Mm.
Yeah, and they had it all there, all ready the next morning. I was coming to town, so it was all ready. And you seen one of those interviews? That was Saturday morning. They had already pushed that dirt in and stabilized that shoulder, so they had moved really quickly on that. And I was actually very surprised that they did, because we all know that, like say when we had that mudslide or that slide at home. They didn't even respond. They didn't even send anyone down. So this was an obvious concern to them, and I was very concerned about one of their press releases, or a press release from Western, and they made very sure to mention who meets TFL 44, that we're part of that. And to me, they're saying we're just as equal or part liable for that. So I think that's something we have to bring up with. Who's our forestry lawyer now? Probably Nathan or Jeremy. I think that's something that we should be very concerned about. We are 7% owner of TFL 44.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if it ever gets down to that, there's a liability TFL 44 license holder. I'm guessing, but we'll have to get legal opinion on this. Do we have any liability with that? But I'm confident that our lawyers must have put something in that agreement to cover us there. So anyway, that's a quick update that I can think of. Any questions or comments?
Of course, my appreciation for all the work that you did do over the weekend. It was very significant to see how often you were in the media to make sure that the message was being put forward. So it was noticeable on our end, so that's good. Have you met with the mayor or anyone else?
I've had a discussion with the mayor
Okay.
by phone, and we've agreed that Heather will take the lead of, we want to redraft our briefing presentation to the transportation minister, and Shari and I will sit together making the presentation.
Okay. Sounds good, thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Just one comment, and certainly want to say it as well, appreciate the work and the messaging that you put out there on behalf of our nation in terms of what the families are going through. To keep an eye on, someone should keep an eye on when those services will be, or funerals will be for the ones that lost their lives in that, so we can send something from our nation to the funerals, or somebody go on their behalf.
So we'll make an attempt then to, however we get contact with those. Thank you, Christian.
And the other comment about the trying your best not to go down the political road to attack the people that we need their puppies, right, to listen to what we're saying here. But I think there's some momentum here that we can. There's some momentum here that we have with media already on that issue. So sometime, in the near future, we should pick that messaging up again, knowing that it's on the radar now with a lot of media out there about the road condition. Because I think that was one of the potential strategies that we had in place if we had to go there to make a media announcement about the road and negotiations and what have you about that.
Mhm.
So maybe at some point, because it's on their radar, could be beneficial to us sometime in the near future to kind of pick up the phone again and say, you know what, this is what we're doing. Well, yeah. So I just wanted to make that comment.
That's a good point. Heather and Kathy, we can capture that so that when we go to the Union of BC Municipalities meeting, that we should maybe have a press release on Monday that Huayet is going to that meeting specifically to read that. Okay, thank you. Okay, any more comment on that? Seeing none, we'll move on the agenda, which is declarations. It's a standing item. Anybody get a gift over $50? Doesn't take much today now to get a gift over $50. Nobody?
I received a gift package from a visitor from, it's Zoet, or how do you say it? It's ZOHT, Reserve number 4. But they've been coming here, Larry Shutter, his name is.
Oh, okay.
So they've been coming here he's been coming here for like 3 or 4 years now to our territory, and so I sent an email earlier on just acknowledging that he's going to be there, and that was part of his teaching to give an offering to the First Nations territory that he's in. So he left a gift basket with jams and syrups, and so they're from the Merritt and Nicola Valley area. Yeah.
I'm glad you mentioned that, Station. Like sometimes we may receive a gift and it's given to Cation, to Hawaii First Nation. It's not a personal gift to Cation. And that's something we need to capture in our gift policy related to this. So maybe we can visit that, because there's sometimes I feel there is no need to make a declaration, especially if it's not given to you personally. Say, for example, I got gifts and they're still in my office. I leave it in the office and I take it not as a personal gift to me, but a gift to the Hawaii First Nation. So I leave it in the office. Okay, any conflicts of interest? I'm the only one that has one, I think, when it comes down to the sections, and I think it's 11.2, is that right, Kathy?
11C.
11C? I'll have to remove myself from that discussion.
I'm thinking I might have to remove myself from
Oh,
the
11A.
email.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or 11D, sorry.
D.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, citizens' concerns, we moved that issue down to no correspondence. Is there any correspondence that we need, that requires any reviewing? Section
There,
5.
did we print them off?
Yeah.
There should be a cutoff in there, not an actual.
Quite a few of them.
Yeah.
My computer's
right
been
on
giving me
the
trouble for the
computer.
last 4 days, so
Oh.
I haven't been able to add it to.
All of these?
Yes.
Yeah, I have 2 question marks.
I don't have all of
Okay,
them.
Super printed off.
if we go through them, the First Nation Finance Authority is a copy of the annual report, so that FYI, I didn't see anything that required our attention. Robert Dennis, that's from the AFN, that's a congratulatory letter to our newly elected council. Catherine Kirby from BC. It's just something regarding addressing the current gaps under the Motor Vehicle Act. So, and it says, please contact me if you have any questions. So we've got that letter. If anyone has any questions or concerns about that letter, please provide it to us so that we can respond if we have to. And Mosaic, yeah, this is the company I want to meet with. So Kathy, can you make sure we get a meeting set up with Mosaic, but also thanking them for the letter for our council being reelected. Oh yeah, they always said, please let me know when you have a place in your busy schedule for introductions and discussion. So you want them at the next meeting?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm kind of curious to the second paragraph too, there's a comment there from Mosaic in regards to already been in contact with some of your senior staff. I'm just kind of curious too, if this is at the government level or business level, and what those conversations were.
They haven't been in contact with me, so, and nobody's mentioned anything to me, so it's probably an informal conversation. Or they might have been in contact with Stan. Stan, yeah, maybe Patrick.
And the other thing too, he says, I have my senior staff would be pleased to learn more about Hoyet, so maybe Hoyet 101 could be presented to them. And there's a letter from Tishot First Nation calling all survivors and intergenerationals of heirs. The heirs would be Alberni Indian Residential School healing event. That event is happening on September 27th and 28th. And it would be an honor to have you and any delegates from your nation attend our 2-day event. So decision is, are we willing to send a delegate or representatives representing?
Can I add to that? So the first day is going to be based on like the kind of work that needs to be done.
Mhm.
So the emotional brush offs and kind of getting down to the emotional level. And then the second day is going to be like a celebration of all of like the hard work that was done on the first day. Or like just kind of celebrating the residential school survivors that
Yeah.
are in attendance. So I don't know if you want to keep that in mind when thinking about it.
I'd like to keep that in mind because I had an opportunity to meet one of our citizens who attended the residential school. And it's playing hard on him, so I think we should, those of you may know Steve Lucas. I think he would be a good delegate to send on our behalf, along with one of our representatives. I don't know, does anybody from council want to go?
It's also the same time period as the AGM as well as the UBCM.
No.
Yeah, the 27th is Friday and then 28th Saturday.
Yeah, Friday and Saturday.
I was thinking of checking out on Saturday.
Okay. think that's, Miss Michelle Ellison, Ratcliffe and Company, with the position with respect to Keegan IR9. So we can leave that with Ratcliffe. Holy smokes, not even halfway through here. That watch what you wish for? Changes to federal legislation implications for the Quispa LNG project. The project's on hold anyway. John, can I refer this letter to you?
Yeah.
Actually, Robert, I did talk to Nathan about that one because you had asked us to, and Nathan said there's no action required at this time.
Okay.
That makes no
Yep.
changes.
And in accordance with paragraph of the Monmouth final agreement, I suspect this is already attended to at the speaking table, John, is that, what do you know? I'll leave that with you.
Yeah.
That letter can go to you. Still, this one can go to you too. Or you probably already have them anyway.
Oh, yeah, okay, no, I've seen this.
I don't think we need to pay any attention to the confidential. We got contaminated sites. Okay. John already has that one. Well, that's part of that. Ooh. Kathy, do you think that this one regarding changes to the Ministry of Social Development and Poverty Reduction is proposing needs our attention in any way?
I think that it will if they improve the benefits to citizens. Our benefits are equal to the Ministry of Social Development right now, but if they improve those, then of course we'll want to improve ours as well.
So on behalf of the way portfolio holder,
Yeah.
and I couldn't see anything about this, the species at risk at this time, but I think it should be referred to, is it Christine, Kathy? Just for
Yep.
to follow up in the event we may need to do more work.
Okay.
And then somebody wrote from the national, he's the national president of CUPW. Seems to be more of a political related issue. I don't think we need to respond to that.
Union?
It says when the Liberal government led the latest public review of the future of Canada Post, several municipalities became actively involved in the process.
Canadian Union Postal Workers.
Yeah.
Okay.
A letter to Kathy, does that need to come here, Kathy? if it's
We've
to-
already dealt with this. It's been
Okay.
sent to Edward and Clichin.
And then, John, do you want to speak to this Trans Mountain expansion project and the, speak to that?
Yeah, so this is, so the Trans Mountain Expansion Project is looking for, in exchange for a letter of non-opposition, that they would provide for us a certain amount of money. And I think it's an in-camera discussion, which is why I'm not talking about it. We did accept to allow for the chief counselor to sign on our behalf. So the amount of money that we'll be getting is it's set up in a stepped format regarding the phases of the project. And we'll be sharing, it'll be dispersed to, I believe, Monmouth first and then sent our way in the sharing, just an equal share, I believe. So it's not a huge amount of money, but every bit helps. So it's mostly because what's offered is based on the impact that the Trans Mountain project would have, and the impact is mostly on our harvest area in the ocean. So it's not going across our territory, it's not necessarily, the pipeline isn't going to affect us directly, but indirectly through shipping, and I think that's the reason why we're getting some sort of accommodation.
Is that the one that's referred to as the TMX project?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a Trans Mountain expansion.
Yeah. Good, okay. There's watch what you wish for session. Mainly me. Correspondence we've done with minutes of previous meeting, summary of motions, law clerk.
So I did not attach the summary motions to the materials today because we have added that now to our executive director report. So I didn't know if you wanted me just to scratch it off as an item, and then we can review it at the director's report.
I think one of the reasons why I invited Kathy to come with me to an NTC meeting there, what do you see there? And I think it's a good governance practice. They review the decision. It's a separate item by itself, and then there's an executive director's report. And I realize there's importance because that is, you know, it is a responsibility of the ED to carry out the motions of the executive council.
So Robert,
Kathy?
in the executive director report, I did do a summary of last meeting's motions, similar to what Florence does, for just to quickly go
So
over.
your report will have an A and B.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, perfect.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so from going forward, I'll scratch the summary of motions on the previous minutes. And then we can discuss the motions at the executive director report.
Okay, is that okay with everyone? I think Connie especially, you know, you've raised that very diligently in the past.
We did.
Okay, number 7, holy smokes, don't stop. Delegations and presentations, the SSHRC research project, priorities, and next steps. Heather is at 12:30, correct?
Yeah, so we've got Heather Castleton coming in at 12:30, and then followed by her will be the Warriors program at 1 o'clock.
So those two we can table. And me too, okay, well, B is then deferred to 1 p.m. or whenever. And then 7C, Me Too strategy update, John Jan.
Yes, so you have, I believe, 4 documents in front of you. So there's one that's called the brief TEC regarding the Me Too and surplus salmon enhancement dated February 9th, 2019. And then you should also have a draft briefing note from Bocking to Monmouth Nations regarding Me Too from 4th of July 2019. They're probably at the very bottom of the list. They don't have the numbers attached to them.
7C is the item number.
Are you in the key draft drawer? It'll be.
Yeah, but I'm pleased at the bottom.
And then there's, it's actually 5 documents. HFA framework for assessing seafood opportunities, Me Too fisheries considerations, and Me Too salmon update. There's quite a few.
Is this FYI, John, or?
So what we're looking to do is get council's considerations and feedback on what we should be doing moving ahead. So in the document titled Brief TEC regarding Me Too, dated February 9th, there's a set of recommendations, and I'll read them out for everyone's benefit. So it should be the one dated February 9th. It'll be on the 3rd page. So coming from here, we have recommendation 1 that states that Hawaiiat should immediately commence discussions with other Monmouth nations on how unused space in the harvest agreement should be allocated and determine how much space they have and the means to desire to fill. This can be part of the normal Monmouth Fisheries Committee business. Recommendation 2 is subject to economic considerations, and prior to 2nd of July 2021, Hawaiiat should consider to purchase licenses and quota to fill the space in the harvest agreement allocated to Hawaiiat through the discussions with other Monmouth nations. And recommendation 3, as licenses are.
Just a minute, John, with
Yeah.
the recommendation, would that be dealing with the 1.2 million we got?
Yeah, as licenses or quota are acquired, Kuwait should transfer those licenses and quota, or existing ones, including the crab license after it becomes an Area E license, to the harvest agreement following the relinquishment process defined by the Fisheries and Oceans in a manner that ensures consistency with the Five Nations Fisheries Management Plan. So we can move ahead on Me Too only insofar as preparing the way for taking advantage of what's in our treaty in regards to protecting licenses. So that's putting it into the harvest agreement. So we have a bunch of fisheries licenses right now, and we do have the option to acquire more. In addition to that, we can acquire more more space in the harvest agreement because they're allocated to monarch nations, and not every monarch nation will be leaning into fisheries the same way that we are. And so part of what we need to do is link to these 3 steps, and these 3 steps are related.
So with that, your view that the other nations probably equal it?
Probably Euclid.
Yeah.
I don't know about the others.
Yeah, I think
Toquat
yes,
doesn't seem
yeah.
like they're interested. So, so there's a process involved in doing that, and what I'm hoping for is direction from council with a strong idea of where we're going from a decision-making and a budgeting perspective.
Mhm.
So I do have a couple of questions that should be just asked out loud. One is in relation to the status of the $1.2 million that you referred to, as well as is there willingness on the part of council to commit to the purchase of licenses over and beyond what we already have or what was planned.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, we need to know what amount that is, because we only have 1.5 years of time to do it. And I know that the priority of council at the moment is building houses and making sure that the community is in place. It seems to me also in the top 3 of priorities is focusing on fisheries and the traditional and the historic, as well as the commercial opportunities involved there. So with that in mind, I don't want to force a decision, but at this point, I'd like to know the status of the $1.2 million. Has it already been spent? As well as, is there an option to acquire licenses or quota, or both, by the 2nd of July 2021. And then that will allow us to take anything that we've acquired at that point and protect it under the harvest agreement. And then once it's protected, then we're in a position to hopefully maximize our opportunities once we start negotiating a fishing regime like the Five Nations.
Yeah.
So the Five Nations being the house at all Tuckweed Nations.
I think Paul can help here, but the partial answer to that, I think with us acquiring the crab license, that can be designated as an expenditure under that 1.2. And so there should be a balance left, and we should decide whether we want to acquire more licenses. And then also we should decide, is there other licenses that we want to acquire? In other words, to your earlier point, that we would allocate funds for that to happen. And I think what we got to be aware of now is that our current financial position will enable us to look at things in a different way than when we approved our budget at the start of the past legislature. Does that answer that, Paul, or
Yep.
you want add anything to that?
Yep, that's
Okay, John.
what I would
So
say.
there's a pair of documents that I would ask council to look at specifically now and in the future. First of which is a document called Fisheries Considerations for the Me Too provisions of the Monarch Treaty. This is a detailed overview of what Me Too could look like for Hawaiian, based on what we have and potentially what we could get in the future. Now, a lot of what's here basically states that if we equally share quota and licenses, and depending on how we arrange how the fishery is set up, the amount of money that is allocated to fishermen through doing this is, the EBITDA is looking in the kind of mid-thousands. That's assuming, though, that you have 8 to 12 or more fishermen involved. if we have fewer fishermen, then potentially that number will go up for those fishermen. It's not $80,000 though. It's not 1980s, you can do whatever you want. The way that it's arranged, unless it's only 1 or 2 or 3 boats, it's a supplement to what fishermen are already doing commercially, and we just need to make sure that that's well known. That this can be higher than what's in the report based on our share of the allocation, as well as how many boats are actually out on the water doing this. So with that in mind, that's a decision that we can make in the future, but the decision to make now is, do we want to maximize the amount of licenses or quota that we're acquiring to give more options to fishermen and our fishery in the future to maximize potentially the revenue that they'll be making and ideally the employment that they'll be creating by taking on deckhands and needing materials and that sort of thing. My understanding of the specifics of how the fish are allocated is still in the works. However, the way that the math works here looks like it's pretty straightforward, and the assumptions that are being made in the harvesting are conservative in that the costs are bumped up higher and the revenues are bumped down lower. So on the average, you might likely beat some of these numbers in regards to revenue, but we can't legislate based on that. We have to look at kind of the worst case scenario. So it's not the worst case scenario, but it's not rosy either, right? It's not rose colored. So this is something that potentially from an investment perspective, finance may need to look at, or at depth, depending on how we want to arrange how fisheries works.
Yeah.
That's not the decision we need to make now, though. The decision we may need to make now is, are we willing to spend the money to do it? And if so, where is it coming from? And are we willing to leverage the nation to do it? So we have an amount of money, but what we've never done as a nation is taken on loans to pay for these sorts of things. And that's kind of the next step for a lot of what we're doing. That takes People's Assembly approval and a recommendation on how it could be done and whether it should be done from finance. That being said, we could just allocate money as a whole by 2021. So this isn't super urgent, but it is still in the urgent box.
Yes.
Or else we're going to lose the...
Everybody's hands can go up.
Connie and Trevor.
I just want to make a comment about the plan around the potential additional licenses and quota is to look at what the benefit would be for us to, because I know there's some Kuwait citizens, so that would be my preference, would be the first area to kind of look at, is looking at internally at our fishermen, because I know that there's one for sure, maybe more, that are looking to get out of the fishing industry, and that's Clifford Nicholas.
To get out.
Sorry, like, because of health reasons, right? So
Yeah,
he's looking at
yeah.
getting rid of his fishing business, so I just want to make a comment on that, if that's what we're going to do. If we go down that road, then my preference would be to look at seeing who is within our nation that is doing what Clifford is doing, and then I would suggest that to be the first step if we're going to be buying additional licenses.
If I could just add a comment to what you're saying, please. An example of what I think you're leaning to is that the Cayucot have bought their own boat.
Yeah.
And the Cayucot consistently get their allocation. As a matter of fact, they're probably one of the first ones to get their allocation. They're way up north of the island, and they're catching their sockeye quota before we do.
Yeah.
Now, to me, there's something wrong with our picture internally if that's what happens. When you got the nation farthest away from the fishery, being the first one to get their treaty quota, I think we need to revisit what we're doing. And one of the things that enable them to do that is that they have a boat, so they're not dependent on anyone else to do their fishing. They do it all internally. And that's what I'm saying, that buying Clifford's boat could be an advantage to us, enabling us to always catch our quota